I am a 35-year-old software engineer in Seattle, pretty successful by most standards. Yesterday, out of nowhere, I got a call from my brother Nathan after 3 years of silence. He demanded I pay for our parents' retirement since they are broke. Why? Because I owe them. The irony is painful. Growing up, my parents gave Nathan everything while I got scraps. Their golden child who could do no wrong. Now they want me to bail them out. Trước khi tôi kể cho các bạn câu chuyện điên rồ này, hãy cho tôi biết bạn đang xem từ đâu và nhấn subscribe nếu bạn từng phải đối mặt với sự bất công trong gia đình. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Chicago in what seemed like a normal middle-class family. My father worked as a university professor, while my mother was a nurse at the local hospital. We were financially comfortable, nothing extravagant, but certainly not struggling. My brother Nathan was 4 years older than me, and from my earliest memories he was considered the family prodigy, especially when it came to sports. The differences in how we were treated were obvious even when I was very young. When I was 6, Nathan got a brand new mountain bike for his 10th birthday. 2 months later, on my birthday, I received his hand-me-down bike with chipped paint and worn-out brakes. My parents explained that Nathan needed the new one because he was older and more responsible. This pattern repeated throughout my childhood, with everything from clothes to opportunities. Nathan participated in every summer camp and sports team he wanted. Baseball, basketball, football, swimming, you name it. My parents found the money for it. When I showed interest in joining the science club or taking piano lessons, I was told to use my allowance or find ways to earn the money myself. I started mowing lawns at 8 years old just to pay for my own extracurricular activities. Family conversations inevitably revolved around Nathan. Dinner time was dedicated to discussing his latest game or tournament. If I tried to share something about my day, the topic would quickly swing back to my brother. I learned to stay quiet and just listen. One memory stands out painfully clear. On my 10th birthday, my parents completely forgot about my celebration because Nathan had a championship football game. I sat alone in our house that evening, waiting for them to remember. They returned home at 9:30, excited that Nathan had scored the winning touchdown before realizing they had missed my entire birthday. They promised to take me to a restaurant the following weekend to make up for it. That make-up dinner lasted exactly 45 minutes. We spent 10 minutes talking about my interests and achievements, and the remaining 35 minutes discussing how Nathan was being scouted by high school coaches already. I remember staring at my half-eaten cake, fighting back tears as my accomplishments were once again overshadowed. Despite being told I had natural talent by my piano teacher, my parents never attended a single one of my recitals. My mother always had a shift at the hospital, or my father had papers to grade, or most commonly they needed to attend one of Nathan's sporting events. It was during one of those lonely walks home from a piano recital where I performed a difficult Mozart piece perfectly to an audience that did not include my family that I first realized I would never be a priority to them. The only place I felt truly valued was at the Garcia family home next door, Mr. and Mrs. Garcia treated me like their own son. They came to every recital, science fair, and school event my parents missed. Mrs. Garcia taught me how to cook traditional Mexican dishes in her kitchen on weekends, while Mr. Garcia showed me how to change oil and fix minor car problems in their garage. They gave me the unconditional love and attention I craved from my own parents. The stark contrast between how the Garcias treated me and how my own family did was painful but educational. In their home, I was important. My thoughts mattered. My achievements were celebrated. In my own home, I was an afterthought existing in the shadow of the golden child. When I entered high school, the disparity in how we were treated became even more pronounced. While Nathan struggled academically, barely maintaining a C average, I excelled in all my classes, particularly math and science. I joined the computer club and quickly became known as one of the top students in our grade. By sophomore year, I was taking advanced placement courses and helping teachers troubleshoot their computer problems. Despite my academic achievements, my parents remained fixated on Nathan's sports career. He had received a sports scholarship to a state university, even though his grades were mediocre at best. My parents spent thousands of dollars on special training camps, equipment, and private coaches to help him improve his game. Meanwhile, I worked part-time at a local computer shop to pay for my own advanced coding classes and computer parts. My junior year, I won first place in the state science fair with a program I had coded myself. The local newspaper even ran a small article about it. My parents said congratulations over breakfast, then immediately shifted the conversation to Nathan's upcoming college football game. They did not attend the award ceremony. During my senior year, I maintained a perfect 4.0 gigapascals and was accepted to several prestigious universities. When I graduated as valedictorian, my parents attended the ceremony but failed to bring a camera. They organized a small celebration at home with a store-bought cake. No extended family was invited. No special gifts were given. This was in stark contrast to Nathan's graduation 4 years earlier, where they rented out a local restaurant, invited every relative and family friend, and presented him with a new watch. The photos from that celebration still hung prominently in our living room, while not a single picture existed of me in my graduation cap and gown. The Garcia family once again stepped in where my parents failed. They organized a separate graduation party for me, invited their extended family, who had all come to know me over the years, and gifted me a laptop for college. Mrs. Garcia cried during my valedictorian speech and hugged me tightly afterward, telling me how proud she was. Mr. Garcia took dozens of photos documenting the milestone my own parents had neglected. When it came time to discuss college finances, I experienced perhaps the most painful conversation of my young life. Despite my excellent grades and test scores, I only received a partial scholarship to MIT, my dream school. I would need additional financial support to cover the remaining tuition and living expenses. My parents sat me down in our living room expressions, uncomfortable but resolved. My father spoke first, explaining that they would not be able to provide any financial assistance for my education. They had depleted their college savings fund, supporting Nathan through his 5 years of university. My mother added that they believed in my ability to find a way, given how smart and resourceful I was. The true betrayal came a week later when I saw a brand new car parked in our driveway. It was for Nathan, who had graduated college with a mediocre GPA and no job prospects. My parents had somehow found money for that extravagance, while claiming they could not help with my education. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried for the last time over their favoritism. I promised myself I would never again expect fairness from them. I ended up attending MIT by working 3 part-time jobs throughout my 4 years there. I worked as a teaching assistant for the computer science department, did freelance web development on weekends, and took overnight shifts at the campus IT help desk. I averaged 4 hours of sleep most nights, surviving on coffee and determination. Despite this punishing schedule, I maintained a high GPA and made connections that would prove valuable for my future career. The stress took a toll on my health with frequent migraines and weight loss, but I refused to drop out or ask my parents for help. During this time, my roommate Alex became my closest friend and supporter. Unlike me, he came from a loving, supportive family who occasionally sent care packages with enough snacks and supplies for both of us. When Alex's parents learned about my situation, they started including notes for me in these packages, telling me they were proud of my hard work. These small gestures meant more to me than they could ever know. Throughout college, my relationship with my family became increasingly distant. I only visited during major holidays, and even then, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Conversations were superficial, focused primarily on Nathan's latest endeavors or problems. My parents rarely asked about my classes, my jobs, or my future plans. Phone calls and emails from my parents were infrequent and brief, usually centered around family news that inevitably highlighted Nathan in some way. I began to limit these interactions, responding with short messages and making excuses to end calls quickly. By my senior year of college, I had accepted that I would never receive the parental recognition or support that most of my peers took for granted. Instead of continuing to crave what I would never have, I focused on building my own life and future one that would not depend on their approval or assistance. After graduating from MIT with honors, I accepted a position at a leading tech company in Seattle. The starting salary was more than either of my parents had ever made, and the job came with excellent benefits and growth potential. I threw myself into work, eager to prove my worth in a meritocratic environment where results mattered more than favoritism. Within 3 years, I had received 2 promotions and established myself as a rising talent in the company. I continued learning new programming languages and technologies in my free time, building a diverse skill set that made me increasingly valuable. By 28, I had saved enough for a down payment on a modest house in a good neighborhood, something I was immensely proud of, given my start with zero financial support. Despite my own financial challenges paying off student loans, I occasionally sent money home to my parents. I never mentioned these transfers, and they never acknowledged receiving them. It was my way of fulfilling what I felt was a filial obligation, even though they had never fulfilled their parental one. While my career flourished, Nathan's life took a different trajectory. His dreams of professional sports ended with a knee injury during his final year of college. Without a backup plan or marketable skills, he drifted between jobs, never keeping one for more than a few months. He moved back in with our parents at 25, ostensibly temporarily, but showed no signs of leaving even years later. From the occasional updates I received from my mother, I learned that Nathan had married and divorced twice by 30. Both relationships ended partly due to financial stress, as Nathan struggled to hold steady employment. Each divorce left him with additional debt and alimony payments, which somehow became my parents' burden to bear. When I was 32, I visited home for the first time in nearly 2 years. The house looked shabbier than I remembered, with peeling paint and a neglected garden. Inside things were no better. The furniture was worn, and there were stacks of mail on the kitchen counter that looked suspiciously like bills and collection notices. During that visit, I discovered the full extent of my family financial situation. Over dinner, when Nathan was out with friends, my father reluctantly admitted they had remortgaged the house to pay off some of Nathan's debts. My mother, looking older than her years, explained they had also dipped into their retirement savings to help him through his divorces and periods of unemployment. I offered to help them create a financial plan that would include strict boundaries with Nathan, suggesting they could not continue enabling his irresponsibility. The conversation quickly turned hostile. My father accused me of being judgmental and uncaring about my brother's struggles. My mother tearfully defended their choices, saying they could never turn their back on their child who needed them. When I pointed out that they had effectively turned their backs on me when I needed them, my father dismissed my hardships as incomparable. College loans were not the same as divorce and depression, he argued. My mother added that I had always been self-sufficient, so they knew I would be fine without their help. I left that evening with a heavy heart and a clear understanding that nothing would change. They would continue to sacrifice their own financial security for Nathan while expecting me to fend for myself. It was the last real conversation I had with my parents for the next 3 years. During those 3 years of minimal contact, I focused on building the life I wanted. I received another promotion to senior management, started dating seriously, and expanded my social circle with friends who became the family I chose. I also began seeing a therapist to process the lingering pain from my childhood and develop healthier emotional patterns. Occasionally, I would hear updates about my family through childhood friends still living in Chicago. My parents' financial situation had apparently worsened. They were behind on mortgage payments and facing possible foreclosure. Nathan was still living with them, still unemployed, and according to rumors, had developed a gambling habit that further drained their resources. I considered reaching out several times, but always stopped myself. Every previous attempt to help had been met with resistance and accusations. I had finally created boundaries that protected my mental health, and I was reluctant to cross them without good reason. Then yesterday, my phone rang with a number I had not seen in years. It was Nathan. At first, his tone was friendly, almost jovial, asking about my life and job, as if we had spoken just last week instead of 3 years ago. But the pleasantries lasted only minutes before he revealed the true purpose of his call. Our parents were about to lose their house, he explained. They had no retirement savings left, and both were now too old and unwell to continue working full-time. They needed financial support, and, as the successful son with the big corporate job, it was my responsibility to provide it. When I did not immediately agree, his tone shifted dramatically. He accused me of abandoning the family, of being selfish with my money, while our parents suffered. Then came the statement that left me speechless. "You owe them, Curtis. They raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you. Now it is your turn to take care of them." I nearly laughed at the absurdity. The brother who had received everything, claiming I owed a debt for receiving the bare minimum. The golden child demanding I pay for the consequences of their collective financial irresponsibility. The audacity was breathtaking. After that phone call, I spent a sleepless night wrestling with conflicting emotions. Anger at the unfairness of the situation competed with lingering guilt and a sense of obligation. By morning, I had made a decision. I would face this issue head-on once and for all. I booked a flight to Chicago for the following weekend, arranged time off work, and prepared myself mentally for what would likely be an emotional confrontation. I also gathered documentation of every financial contribution I had made over the years, every loan payment I had struggled through, and every major expense my parents had covered for Nathan, but not for me. The flight gave me time to reflect on what I really wanted from this encounter. Validation. An apology neither seemed likely. What I needed was to speak my truth and establish clear boundaries for the future, regardless of how they responded. Landing in Chicago filled me with a mixture of nostalgia and dread. The taxi ride to my childhood home revealed a neighborhood in decline with several foreclosure signs on nearby properties. Our house looked even worse than during my last visit, with missing roof shingles and a cracked driveway. My parents answered the door with surprised expressions that quickly turned wary. Nathan joined us in the living room, his hostile glare contrasting with our parents' uncertain welcome. The house smelled of neglect and lingering cigarette smoke, a habit my father had apparently picked up in recent years. Rather than easing into the conversation, I decided directness was the only approach that would work. I laid out the facts of our family dynamic as I had experienced it, the consistent favoritism shown to Nathan throughout our childhood, the lack of emotional and financial support for my education and career, and the current situation they found themselves in as a direct result of their choices. I spoke calmly without accusation in my tone, simply stating what had happened and how it had affected me. I described working 3 jobs during college while they bought Nathan a new car. I recounted birthdays and achievements that went unrecognized, while Nathan received parties and praise for lesser accomplishments. I reminded them of the money I had sent over the years, never acknowledged, always accepted. My father attempted to interrupt several times with justifications, but I held firm, asking to finish before they responded. My mother began crying silently halfway through, while Nathan fidgeted with increasing agitation. When I finally fell silent, the expected denials began. My mother insisted they had always loved us equally. My father claimed financial decisions had been made based on need-not favoritism. Nathan accused me of exaggerating and being too sensitive. But as I calmly presented specific examples with dates, amounts, and consequences, their defenses weakened. My father looked away, when I mentioned my valedictorian speech that they had not photographed. My mother stared at her hands when I described the contrast between our graduation celebrations, and Nathan eventually fell silent when I listed the debts they had paid for him while refusing to help with my education. In a surprising moment of vulnerability, Nathan admitted that he had felt enormous pressure as the golden child. His entire identity had been built around being a star athlete, and when that path closed, he had no idea who he was or what to do. He acknowledged wasting opportunities and making poor financial decisions, but stopped short of taking full responsibility, still blaming circumstances beyond his control. My parents, faced with irrefutable evidence of their unequal treatment, finally acknowledged some truth in my words. My father admitted they had expected less support from me because I had always seemed capable and independent. My mother confessed they had overcompensated for Nathan's struggles, believing he needed more help than I did. Neither offered a genuine apology for the pain their actions had caused, but their admissions were more than I had expected. It was enough to move the conversation forward. I then outlined my proposal. I would help them find affordable rental housing and cover their rent for 1 year, giving them time to stabilize. I would assist them in finding part-time work appropriate for their ages and health conditions. I would not, however, provide open-ended financial support or take on Nathan debts. And I would not continue any relationship with my brother if he could not respect these boundaries. My offer was generous given our history, but it came with clear conditions. They needed to take responsibility for their financial future beyond the 1 year of assistance. They needed to stop enabling Nathan's destructive behaviors. And they needed to acknowledge the reality of our family dynamic rather than clinging to the fiction that we had all been treated fairly. Nathan's reaction was immediate and explosive. He called me heartless, selfish, and worse. He claimed I was punishing our parents for loving him, that I was using my financial power to control them. He stormed out of the house before I could respond, slamming the door hard enough to shake the windows. My parents' reaction was more measured. Disappointment showed clearly on their faces. They had clearly hoped for an unlimited bailout, but they recognized the rationality of my offer. My father nodded slowly, acknowledging that it was more than they deserved given our history. My mother reached for my hand, squeezing it gently in a rare gesture of affection. As I prepared to leave, feeling emotionally drained but lighter than I had in years, my mother asked if this meant we would have a relationship going forward. I told her honestly that I did not know. The help I offered was not contingent on regular contact, and I needed time to decide what, if any, relationship I wanted with them in the future. Walking away from that house, I felt a profound sense of relief and freedom. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without seeking their approval or validation. I had offered help on my terms, not out of obligation, but from choice, and I had finally stopped hoping for the recognition and love that had been withheld for so long. I maintained my promise, setting up the rental apartment and monthly payments. I check in occasionally to ensure they are following through on their end of our agreement. Nathan has made no attempt to contact me since that day, and I consider that a blessing. The toxic cycle that defined our relationship has finally been broken. The process of healing continues both through professional therapy and the support of genuine friends who value me for who I am. I have created a scholarship fund for students who, like me, pursue higher education without family support, turning my pain into something that helps others. What I have learned through this journey is that forgiveness does not mean continuing to accept mistreatment. Setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary for well-being. And most importantly, your value as a person is not determined by those who fail to see it, even if they are family. Sometimes the family that matters is not the one connected by blood, but the one that shows up when you need them. The people who see your worth, even when you cannot see it yourself. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about navigating complicated family dynamics. And remember, choosing your own well-being is not selfish. It is essential. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the strength to create the relationships you deserve, whether with family of origin or family of choice.